Player's dream, but for Brian Welch, it was something else entirely. He's the former lead guitarist for the multi-platinum Grammy-winning rock band Korn. Never heard of him? Ask your kids. And then you can surprise them with what you learn in this People in the News profile of Brian Welch that Paula Zahn finished just before she went on vacation.
Here on a roof, Bible in hand, Brian Welch is a new man. But it wasn't long ago that this hard-rocking, heavy-drinking, drug-addicted rock star was at the pinnacle of his career and drowning, he says, in despair.
I was a junkie, a single dad, and a rock star, all in one. But inside I was dead.
That is how the former guitarist from Korn describes his old life. Before he quit drugs, before he quit the band, before he did this. Brian Welch was raised in a Christian home in the industrial farm town of Bakersfield, California. His quiet childhood, a far cry from his wild future.
When I was a kid, I was really sad inside, and I was kind of shy. I was weak. I was afraid to fight. I was made fun of a lot, and I started getting into music. It just made me feel like I belonged somewhere, you know?
Brian found his calling on the strings of a guitar and discovered a kinship with 4 other teens from Bakersfield, who together formed Korn in 1993.
When all the guys in Korn hooked up back when we were kids, it was like we were a part of something that was going to be our own, you know? And not a, you know, it wasn't about the school, it wasn't about a church, it was about something that we're going to create and do something that we feel that we're gifted to do. It was just fun for us.
Korn's first record earned accolades from fans and critics alike, with a unique fusion of heavy metal and alternative rock that some called nu metal. But their aggressive song lyrics told dark tales of drugs, sex, and violence.
So I take my time, guiding the blade down the line, each cut closer to the vine.
They struck a chord with teenage fans. Awards soon followed.
Korn, freak on a lean!
Korn songs topped music charts. Their albums went multi-platinum, and they struck Grammy Gold not once, but twice.
We played in front of like 200,000 people, and they were all going nuts, and we were like, wow. I dreamt about this when I was a kid, and 100% of it came true. All the fame and money and touring is crazy.
But Brian wasn't happy.
To the outside world, I had it all. I had money, Grammys, I had the house, cars, anything I wanted. But the whole time I was with Korn, when we had success, something at home was failing.
Life on the road took its toll. Brian's wife left, his marriage fell apart, and he became a single father to their little girl, Janaea. The pressure, he says, led to a deep depression and dependency on highly addictive crystal meth, or speed.
I started doing speed full-time, every day. I was addicted to Xanax, too, and sleeping pills. It's like living in pure hell. I was so miserable. I was like, I just want to go to sleep and never wake up, never. And I really wanted to die. I really did.
Late last year, a concerned friend invited Brian to this church in Bakersfield. Brian's pastor, Ron Vietti.
I saw tiredness, I saw confusion, and someone who just was really ready for a change in life.
I was going after my demonic potential, you know? And that was getting famous, worshiping money, worshiping fame, worshiping all this other stuff that I thought life was all about.
That realization prompted Brian to think about leaving the band. But when his 5-year-old daughter started singing sexual lyrics from a Korn song, he decided it was time to quit.
I said, you guys, I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving. I got to leave. I have to leave. I have no other choice. My bass player for Korn, he text messaged me. He said, you're going to get put on MTV. Everyone's going to laugh at you. They're going to say that you're crazy. Is that what you want? I was like, yeah, I'm ready to get laughed at because God's not laughing at me.
That faith led Brian to check into a hotel for what he calls a personal drug rehab with God.
When I was laying in bed, sweating and stuff, going through all the withdrawals and stuff and speed, and I was like, okay, God, I want you to strip this from me. You're the healer. Take this from me. I didn't know what it meant to be touched in the spirit or nothing, but I felt like he goes, I'm going to make you a star by yourself without Korn. You're mine now. You're going to sing for me.
Cured, he says, of his addiction, Brian joined his church group on a headline-making pilgrimage to Israel.
Right when I got the gown on, tears started coming down my eyes. My stomach was contracting, and I just felt just pain. I was looking up, just going, oh, God, I'm sorry.
The change, Brian says, was instant.
I believe that my dad's evil spirits were lifted from me, and now I'm peaceful. I'm peace. I feel peace inside.
Now that Brian Welch has saved himself from his demons, he's taking aim at someone else's.
I'm not saying I'm better than him. I'm saying God is telling me something, and God is telling me something to tell you.
In a new song, he slams one of America's biggest rap stars. Find out who when we come back.
Excuse me, what is that?
Oh, that's a...
A lot of people who recognize the name Alice Cooper have no idea that he's a Christian. Tell us how and when you came to the faith.
You know, I'm the prodigal son, for one thing. I'm the perfect example of the prodigal son. My dad was a pastor. My grandfather was an evangelist. Actually, both my dad and my grandfather were evangelists. And my wife's father is a Baptist pastor. So I grew up in the church, and all of my friends were church kids. I had so much fun. I mean, I was in church on Sunday, Wednesday night, Friday nights. I mean, all my social life was based around kids in the church. And that was great. And it got to high school, and all of a sudden, the Beatles came out. And I went, oh, well, that's kind of, you know, and I was a natural mimic anyways. So I watched the Beatles, and I said, well, that would be fun to do. Being in a hit band with hit records and getting as big as we got is like winning the lottery about 3 times. It just doesn't happen. You know, we were definitely the underdogs in the whole thing, and we kept going, well, we're never going to make it. This is fun, you know, to do this, and then we'll go get real jobs. And we kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden, there we were. You know, and then on top of it, being creative, I looked around and I went, there's no villains in rock and roll. Why not create rock's ultimate villain? You know, and still, without thinking, well, how would that bother? That wouldn't affect my faith at all. You know, the Bible's full of villains. You know, I'll be this villain. And I gave Alice his perimeter, you know, his areas where he wouldn't go past. And I still find songs that from the first albums that are totally got Christian, all kinds of Christian bywords going all the way through it, yeah. You know, because it comes out of you what's in you. Yeah, yeah. So songs like Second Coming and things like that were all pretty much always warning about Satan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really the core kind of message that's in the music, isn't it?
It always has been.
Yeah.
And the weird thing was, even though my image was the most scary, I terrified TBS, I think. Because of, first of all, they never heard my songs. I guarantee you. Mm-hmm. They never actually listened to my songs. Because almost everything I wrote was good and evil. Mm-hmm. Don't pick evil. Yeah. You know, even when I wasn't Christian, I was saying that. You know, God and the devil. Don't pick the devil. It's a bad idea. You know. But, you know, all they saw was the image. All they saw was, and that was okay.
We've all heard of the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. What is the Gospel according to Alice? If you were to summarize the message that so influenced your life, what would it be?
If it says that Jonah was swallowed by a whale, then that means it. If it's, I don't believe this stuff where it's all, well, you know, it's just kind of, those are all parables, and they meant this, and no. I say if it says it, it meant it. you know, and people laugh at me and say, well, you know, I mean, you can't really believe that. And I go, well, if I can believe that God created the world and created everything in it, why wouldn't I believe a simple thing like that? That's not a hard thing. You know, the very fact that he cared enough about me to save my life about 20 times, you know, and help me survive a million different things to put me where I am now. And then the challenge I have now, being a Christian in the rock business. You know, he kind of put me in the Philistines, in the camp of the Philistines, which is okay.
Yeah, what's that like?
Well, you have to live your life every day. You have to live your faith, you know. I mean, I'm living in a world that's not my world. I know that, but I live in it, and I try to live my faith every day in it. If I can live, that's my testimony. I don't need to be going out. If somebody mentions, you know, my faith, I definitely talk about it in interviews and things like that. I mean, I'm very open about it. I'm never under a quilt about who I am. But I'm not going to be the one that says, now sit down, I'm going to tell you about this. And you know, I'm not going to be the car salesman.
It seems like you'd rather live out your life like everybody else than have to live up to someone else's standard of what a celebrity Christian should be like.
If I walk outside and I make a mistake, all of a sudden my Christianity goes down the toilet. Well, what people don't realize, when you become a Christian, does not make it any easier. It makes it harder. It makes your life harder. It makes your soul at ease with God because you know where you're at with Him. It doesn't make your social life or your normal life in America any easier. In fact, it puts you under the microscope. Sometimes I think that, you know, TV evangelism is one of Satan's greatest weapons. They put these guys on a pedestal, and all of a sudden they get caught with a prostitute, and every Christian I know then is under the gun. So you don't think that that's kind of set up? Yeah, I'm telling you. You know, the devil is very smart. He's not going to come out with the horns and the tail. He's going to come in as the slickest car salesman you ever saw. You know, and I've seen some pretty slick pastors on TV. Now, that's not to say they're all like that. I mean, I love Sproul. I love Stanley, Charles Stanley. There's a lot of guys there that I'll sit and I'll listen to, and I'll go, okay, yeah, right on, dead on the middle. You know, I got it. But every time I hear something that goes a little left of center, you know, what? What was that? You know, too much healing on TV. I don't know about that. That's showbiz, I think.
In 1995, you and your friend, Pastor Chuck Savall, started the Solid Rock Foundation, which has donated over $1 million so far to worthy causes worldwide. Tell us a little bit about how you made that decision and what Solid Rock is all about.
I believe if you give kids a chance, they've got creative stuff going on in them all day. If they get home from school, a kid's got his books, he's 13, he's going home from school, his dad's a crack dealer, his mom is on the street somewhere, my brother and sister are both gangbangers, and this kid's going, I don't have much of a choice here, do I? Well, let's give them a choice. Let's give them a place to go where they can go learn guitar. They can learn bass. They can learn how to write lyrics. It can be vocational. They can play basketball. They can do any of that stuff under the guidance of Christian businessmen and Christian people that don't want anything from them. We don't say, okay, now you have to learn these Bible verses. And anything. We're not asking anything. All we're there to do is to take care of them. And that's the best way to show who we are, you know. So give these kids a safe place to go. Give them some creative outlet and have counselors there. Right now, we're kind of looking for those Christian guys that have got a lot of money that want to put it somewhere. You can't get any better than this.
I look to the scriptures for poetic truth, as well as the sort of historical stuff I'm interested in. And of course, there was a historical Jesus.
No, I'm talking about God.
Oh, right.
And do
well,
you...
I see the person of Christ is my way to understand God.
Do you pray?
Yes.
To whom or what do you pray?
To
and in
Christ.
what way? To Christ.
Yeah.
And what do you pray for?
I pray to get to know the will of God, because then the prayers have more chance of coming true. I mean, that's the thing about prayer, isn't it? I mean, we don't do it in a very lofty way in our family. There's just a bunch of us on the bed, usually. We have a very big bed in our house. And we've prayed with all our kids. We read the scriptures, we pray. It's not even regular. Sometimes if we go to church on a Sunday, we go when the church has ended, and we'll just go in on our own as a family.
For peace and quiet.
For peace and quiet, and we'll pray, usually about people that we know who are struggling with something, illness or
so
whatever.
Then, what or who was Jesus as far as you're concerned?
I think it's a defining question for a Christian, is who was Christ, and I don't think you're let off easily by saying a great thinker or a great philosopher, or because actually, he went round saying he was the Messiah. That's why he was crucified. He was crucified because he said he was the Son of God. So he either, in my view, was the Son of God, or he was
not.
No, nuts.
Nuts, yes.
Forget
yes.
rock and roll messianic complexes. This is like, Charlie Manson type delirium. And I find it hard to accept that all the millions and millions of lives, half the earth, for 2,000 years, have been touched, have felt their lives touched and inspired by some nutter. I don't believe it.
So therefore it follows that you believe he was divine.
Yes.
And therefore it follows that you believe that he rose physically from the dead.
Yes, yeah, I'm no problem with miracles. I'm living around them. I am one.
Now, I know that America hasn't solved all of its problems, and I know AIDS is still killing people right here in America, and I know the hardest hit are African Americans, many of them young women. Today at a church in Oakland, I went to see such extraordinary people. This lioness here, Barbara Lee, took me around, and with her pastor, J. Alfred Smith, and may I say that was the poetry and the righteous anger of the black church that was such an inspiration to me, a very white, almost pink Irish man growing up in Dublin. This is true religion. True religion will not let us fall asleep in the comfort of our freedom. Love thy neighbor is not a piece of advice, it's a command. And that means a lot. That means a lot. That means that in the global village, we're going to have to start loving a whole lot more people. That's what that means. That's right. His truth is marching on. 2 million Americans have signed up to the One campaign to make poverty history. Tonight, the NAACP is signing up to work with us, and so can you. His truth is marching on. Because where you live, you die. And to those in the church who still sit in judgment on the AIDS emergency, let me climb into the pulpit for just one moment. Because whatever thoughts we have about God, who He is, or even if God exists, most will agree that God has a special place for the poor. The poor are where God lives. God is in the slums, in the cardboard boxes where the poor play house. God is where the opportunity is lost and lives are shattered. God is with the mother who has infected her child with a virus that will take both their lives. God is under the rubble in the cries we hear during wartime. God, my friends, is with the poor, and God is with us if we are with them. This is not a burden. This is an adventure. Don't let anyone tell you it cannot be done. we can be the generation that ends extreme poverty. Thank you.
You were a brawler. You were a coke addict at sort of 13, 14. You got into gang stuff, just about everything imaginable. And then you had almost what looks like from the outside to be this kind of huge epiphany. As you say, coming from that prison experience, you were very lucky. You met this Catholic priest who guided you. But tell me about what was going through your mind, because for a lot of people, going to prison becomes the start of the rest of their lives and is not pretty. How did you manage, do you think, to make that break, to get out of that culture?
Well, I had to make the choice personally, and then I had to focus on my faith. And my faith has really allowed me to overcome a lot of things, and hard work. You know, nothing comes easy, especially when you've got, you know, your back against the wall and you've got a lot going against you. But I wanted to prove to people through my actions, not my words, that I was going to change and that I was going to make a positive impact on the community that I come from. And that's why I do so much youth work, and, you know, with our foundation and with inner city kids and partnering with Taco Bell and the Graduate to Go program. You know, I could not forget about where I came from and find myself in this position without helping and giving back. So
when that prison door shuts for the first time and you're in the cell, can you remember how you felt?
Of course, of course. You know, and I was 17 at the time, and I was probably about 5'3", 115 pounds, and it was pretty scary. But then again, there was a lot of neighborhood guys there. I had a few confrontations and, you know, a couple of altercations, but you know, it was really just a matter of, okay, do I want to now get in jail, start getting high, doing that whole thing, or am I just going to, you know, focus, start going to church, and, you know, get out of here and never look back?
Because I mean, I've never met you, but I get a sense that you're, you know, I would imagine you can be pretty uncompromising.
In my beliefs, certainly, and in my position when it comes to certain things, in my creativity, yes. But, you know, you do me a favor, I'll do you a favor. I don't like asking for favors, I like giving favors. But, yeah, listen, you got to do whatever you got to do to get the job done.
Do the streets ever leave you?
No, absolutely not. You don't want them to anyway. You have to be able to have that, to tap back into that if need be. Especially now, being a father of 4 kids, 2 beautiful daughters.
Well, this is a fascinating way that your life's evolved, is that you're now in this very protective position. You know, you have these 2 sons, there's two girls. And also you have your faith. I mean, I read that you go to Catholic Mass every day, is that right?
Yeah, if I don't go to Mass necessarily every day, but I definitely go to the church every day. That's how I start my day. I like to get in there for about 15 to 20 minutes to say my prayers.
And what does it bring you?
A very clear focus on what's important, expressing my gratitude for all the blessings that have been bestowed upon me, and a reminder every day of what I need to do, what I need to focus on, and what I need to stay away from.
When you pray, what do you pray for?
I pray to be a good servant to God, a father, a husband, a son, a friend, a brother and uncle, a good neighbor, a good leader to those that look up to me, and a good follower to those that are serving God and doing the right thing, and people that I can look up to and, you know, try to emulate.
Rocky Balboa opens in theaters tomorrow, and for his final round as the Italian Stallion, Sylvester Stallone is bringing something new into the ring: Christianity. Yesterday I talked with Stallone about the film's spiritual side. But before we look at that interview, here's a preview of tomorrow's Rocky Balboa.
This Christmas, the greatest underdog story of our time is back for one final round. Rocky Balboa.
It's over. You can tell it's over, Joe. It's over. Where's that from? The 80s? It's probably the 70s.
Sylvester Stallone is the writer, director, and star of Rocky Balboa. He joins us now by satellite from New York. And it's good to have you with us. Oh, hey, that Rocky, first Rocky, was a classic. You guys shot that thing for about $450,000. It was a wonderful piece of work.
Thank you. It was a miracle. It shot in 28 days, and who knew it would end up, here we are 30 years later.
And aren't you a little afraid you're going to damage the franchise or something?
Well, what happened, I'll tell you, Pat, is that the first one, the fifth one, or the last one installment, I felt as though I left everybody down. It really wasn't about anything. And if you really go back to the first Rocky, people don't realize the first shot is this shot of Christ, and it comes down over the beams of the church. It says resurrection, then it goes to Rocky being pummeled. And what I was trying to say is this man has been chosen for a journey. He's at the lowest strata of society, and we're watching him eventually find Christian ideals, that he finds love, he starts to bring people together, all these what I would call society's outcasts, and they all come together for one unified family spirit, and that's how they triumph. Alone, they're not very, very strong. Together, they're invincible.
Well, how about this last one? I mean, Rocky
well, the last one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the last one exactly is now, after he has all this family core values, his wife has died. So now the wool has been, the rug has been pulled out from under him. He's at his lowest depths. He goes, how can this be? And it's about pulling yourself up from the doldrums of society and of depression and clawing your way back up, finding the light, finding the spirit, moving on. He surrounds himself with old friends, even ex-fighters that read scripture, and then when he goes into the ring, he goes in with a sense of kind of like he's doing God's work. He really is on a mission.
Well, you know, the average viewer is going to say, you know, boxing, you're slamming somebody, you know, what happened with that Russian, you know, you were giving him everything you possibly could. How is that Christian?
Well, because, you know, there is one thing about speaking the word, but eventually you do need the crusader. Someone who goes out there and has to defend it and face evil one-on-one, and that's pretty much what Rocky is. And the entire Rocky series has never been about staunch reality like Raging Bull or other boxing films. It's more of a metaphor about life. And then in the end of Rocky, this last one, Rocky Balboa, he basically has come full circle, and he just, at the very end, just disappears, and the entire journey is over.
Well, as far as the journey, I understand you personally have had an extraordinary spiritual reawakening. You want to tell us about it?
Well, it is. You know, there was a time in there where I was very strict Catholic, and then when I got to Hollywood, and all of a sudden you're given the key to the candy stores, and temptation abounds, and I started to believe my own publicity. And no question, I admit it. I just lost my way. But every time I came back to Rocky, I was given a new shot in the arm, a new reawakening, and then I would abuse it again. And finally, it led to about 12 years of I just was spiraling down, and finally I said, I got to stop. I have to get back to basics. And I really decided to take things out of my own hands and put it in God's hands, because I always felt I was chosen to do something. I was never a writer. I was never an exemplary student. All of a sudden, one day, I started writing Rocky. I wrote it in 3 days, and it wins the Oscar. And I cannot assume that I did this all on my own. I really do not believe that for a second. And I feel the same thing with the last film, that there was a calling. I wanted to do it. And for some reason, I think, Pat, right now, it's a perfect message for what's going on, right? You know, the world's in upheaval. We don't have certain individuals we can look up to. And Rocky's a humble man who really believes in sacrificing himself for the good of others.
Well, I know people will want to watch it. It opens tomorrow in theaters all across America. Have you got good distribution for it?
Oh, it's been fantastic. I mean, so far, when I announced this, I was the laughingstock of the country. But I said, you don't understand. It's really dealing with some deep core values. Now, things are just happening. We're on the cover. Today, I just found out we're on the cover of USA Today. It's like a miracle. It's like going back to the first one. I really believe life does repeat itself, and I have to give my complete thanks to all those that have supported me, and by the grace of God, I'm here again.
Well, it's going to be exciting. I look forward to seeing it. I haven't seen it yet, but I look forward to seeing it, and we urge our viewers to join in with you. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much. God bless.
It's inspiring. God bless you. Well, Rocky Balboa, ladies and gentlemen, opens tomorrow in theaters across the country. You don't want to miss an amazing allegory of a Christ figure coming against the obstacles of life and overcoming. It'll be a tender moment for you, and bless your Christmas.
Hey everybody, Stephen Baldwin here. Very excited to be talking to you today and sharing with you my own personal testimony about how I came to know Jesus. I was working in the movie business, doing a television show called The Young Riders, living in Tucson, Arizona with my wife. and my first daughter. And my wife is from Brazil, and she speaks Portuguese, and she decided to hire a gal to come work and live with us, help around the house, help with the kids, all of that good stuff. And so she reached out to some of her relatives in Brazil who sent this gal over, 55-year-old, tall, kind of tough Brazilian lady. She didn't speak any English, only spoke Portuguese. So this gal's working for us, and the whole first week that she's working for us, she's singing in Portuguese as she's cleaning, and very, very happy and expressive and having a good old time. But she's always singing a song that utilizes one word in every song. She's going, la 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 la, Jesus. Da 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 da, Jesus. Oh, well, it was kind of interesting to observe her and the fact that every song she sang was about Jesus. By the way, her name was Augusta. We noticed that she's singing every song about Jesus. So my wife and I kind of say, wow, that's kind of interesting. Finally, after a week of this, my wife kind of goes up to Augusta and she says, so, I noticed that you sing an awful lot about Jesus. And Augusta starts to laugh, like loud, like belly laugh. And my wife is kind of like, you know, okay, what's up? I'm your boss. What's so funny? And Augusta says, you know, Mrs. Baldwin, forgive me. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'm just a little charmed with the fact that you're asking me this question. She goes, I just think it's rather interesting that you think that I'm here to clean your house. And my wife said, okay, what do you mean? And Augusta went on to explain to my wife that in her church in Brazil, before she'd accepted the job to work with us, she had gone to her church and prayed with her pastor and a bunch of the people in the congregation, and it was prophesied in that church that she had to go take that job because the people that she would go to work for would eventually come to know the Lord and then go on to have their own ministry. Well, my wife then in turn came and told me that story. And I guess you guys can only imagine who started laughing then. You know, I was Stephen Baldwin, working on a TV show, making movies, thought I was cool. And then I think probably 7 years to the day after that, we had moved back to New York. Our kids were a little grown up. We had had a second daughter. And my wife gave her life to Jesus Christ. And a year after that, I followed. And it's just, it's awesome. And in a million years, I never would have imagined that that would have happened to me. And now for me, really what my faith and my walk with Christ is all about is sharing that with people. You know, it's really important in my opinion, regardless, you know, of who you are or what your position is. You know, it's really kind of cool, and it's nice that people come up to me all the time and they go, hey dude, you know, you're in Hollywood and you're living for the Lord, and you know, you're being a part of preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that's so important. And I guess that's, you know, probably true, but you know, I can't look at it that way myself. You know, for me, you know, I like just sharing with people the experience that I'm having, you know, and the peace that I found and the happiness that I found. And for me, that's more important than anything else, is to just be able, I was on an airplane today. I'm back in Portland right now filming these segments, and it was important. I was on an airplane talking to this guy, 35 years old, surfer dude, beautiful wife, young people, and they were saying to me, hey man, what's going on in your life, dude? And I started telling them about Living It, the movie I did, and how it's about skaters and bikers that all know Jesus Christ. And they're like, and it was amazing. The husband says to me, he goes, hey man, that's wild. You know, I've been really spending a lot of time with a lot of these surfers that are born again. He goes, and now you're talking to me about it. He goes, that's kind of weird, huh? And I go, nope, it's not weird at all, dude. It's the way it works. So it's just an awesome experience for me. And for me, I think that the thing that holds true the most with me is that I've come to realize through the gratitude that I have, that I know the Lord, I've come to realize that it's a privilege to know the truth. It's a privilege to know the Word of God. It's a privilege to have the Spirit of God living inside of me, and for me to have the opportunity to share that with other people. It's a gift, and I love it. I love it every minute of it. So God bless you guys, and thanks very much.